This is Scott Marsh with VMware. Today we're going to go over the VOA assessment installation. How do we install the appliance? What do we do after the appliance is installed? And how do we generate reports? So we start with the download page. The download page is www.vmware.com/assessment/VOA. You're going to have your client connect to that page. They're going to be using their My VMware credentials. Once they get into the page, they're going to be able to connect to all kinds of good things. Connect to videos on how it's installed, just directions, quick start guides, and most importantly, the actual download file itself. So they're going to download the file. It's right here. Keep in mind it is 2 gig in size, so it's fairly large. Once they download the file, they're all ready to install it. Now this is a 60-day evaluation, which is usually enough for the VOA assessment. If they need more than that, then you're going to talk to sales, and then sales can actually sell the product. So once the file is downloaded, then we actually do the install. So we're actually going to show you how this is installed through our HOL environment, Hands-On Labs. This is Hands-On Labs 1701. If you actually wanted to do this yourself, you can. So you can go through step by step on how this is installed. This is public. And what we do is first thing we do is we log into vSphere. We log into vSphere, we connect to our hosting clusters. Once we're in there, we're going to click on Actions. The other option you do have is to right click on Data Center, and that will give you the same menu. But when you're in there, you're going to notice an option called Deploy OVF Template. So we're going to click on that. And that's going to ask us where the local file is that we just downloaded. So we're going to choose Browse, and we're going to look for it. It's right here. I'm going to click Open. I'm going to click Next. And that's going to start the process. So here's some important information that you want to keep in mind. From a size on disk, if you're using thin provision, it's 1.5 gig. That's not all that bad. However, if you're using thick provision, it's 274 gig in size. Now, in most cases, the VOA assessment appliance can be installed using thin provisioning. And the reason being is it usually doesn't live on the environment for more than 60 days. The difference is it may be a little slow, but for pulling actual just reporting, it's not that bad. Now, if they want to actually use vRealize operations, then I recommend the thick provision setup. So if they're planning on purchasing this afterwards, then they might want to start with thick. However, the cool thing about this is if they did go ahead and thin provision it to get it up and running, and they decided they wanted to purchase vRealize later and keep this installation installed, all they need to do is move the installation that's on the thin provision disk to a thick provision disk via storage vMotion. So we click Next. We're going to accept the EULA. Click Next again. So it's going to ask for a name. We're just going to leave the default for today. It's going to ask for a location, which is Data Center Site A. We may have multiple data centers. It really depends on your environment. Click Next again. So there are different size configurations depending on what you're trying to do. So we're going to actually choose a small one. Notice a small, medium, and large. Now the small environments actually get up to 2,000 VMs. Do notice though it's 4 vCPUs and 16 gig of RAM. Now again, this is key to understand. When you're actually installing this, you need to make sure you have enough capacity to handle the workload of this virtual machine. Sometimes memory may be an issue just because of the amount of memory that's required. So click Next. Give it a resource cluster. Click Next again. You're going to choose your storage. Again, I would suggest using thin provisioning. We're going to choose the default policy here. For networking in this case, we're going to choose the management network. In most cases, you'll stay with the default. And then we're going to customize the template. So we're going to start with the time zone. We're going to choose UTC for time zone. And then we're going to scroll down and we're going to choose the network settings. Now this is one gotcha that I definitely want to make sure that you're aware of. Most people, when they get phone calls, accidentally put the IP address in this first box, just assuming that's where it goes. If you actually look and see what the tab says, it's the default gateway. So you need to make sure that you get that right. Otherwise, of course, it will not work. Now you can add multiple DNS servers. All you need to do is put comma. This is comma delimited. So again, comma separated, put the next DNS server in there and you're good to go. This is where the actual IP address for the appliance goes. In this case, it's 110.40. And then your corresponding network mask, which in this case is a class C. Once you're done with that, you click next. You're going to power on after deployment and you click finish. And that's going to go ahead and it's going to implement, or it's going to install the appliance for you. Now, of course, the install process here was shortened. Usually it takes between 20 to 30 minutes. So don't be surprised if this actually does take 30 minutes. That's normal to do that. So once it's done, we're going to go ahead and we're going to actually just take a look at it. We're going to click on Launch Remote Console. Now notice the install.sh. In real life, the installation for this is going to take about 20 minutes. So again, if it sits there and it takes a while on install.sh, that's normal. I have a lot of people that actually reset it thinking that's not normal. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. So anyway, we're set here, so we're going to get out of the lab. This is actually, again, installed. It's not configured, but it's installed and ready to go. So we're going to switch to our setup here. So if we connect to this with the browser, this is what we're going to see. It's all ready to go. So you have three options for the install. You have Express Installation, New Install, and Expand. In this case, because it's just a VOA assessment, we're just going to use the Express Installation. It's nice and quick. So we're going to click on this guy. And this is exactly what's going to happen. So we're going to create an administrator password for it. We're going to add a license. And then we're going to go ahead and install and configure. So let's click Next. Put in our admin password. Now notice the username is admin and the password here. You're going to need that later, so definitely remember it. Click Next. Gotta love labs. Definitely keep me busy. Let's try that again. That's how you know it's real. So I'm going to type this in again real quick. Click Next, Finish, and then it's going to go ahead and it's going to do the installation. Now this process here can take 20 to 30 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stop the video. I'm going to wait till it's done, then I'm going to start it again. That way you don't have to sit here and wait 20 minutes. So I'll be right back. All right, 20 minutes later, we are back. So what it did is it actually rebooted after it configured and it brought us back to the login screen. So we're going to log in using admin and our password. And that should put us to back to the setup screen so we can finish the setup. And there it is. So we're going to click Next. We're going to accept another EULA. This is where we put in the product key. We're not going to need it. We're going to use the product evaluation key because this is only going to be running for 60 days. So this is perfect. So click Next. We can uncheck the customer experience box. And then we click Finish. And that's going to go ahead and finish the configuration for us. So the next thing we need to do is actually set up vCenter so that we can start getting some information pulled into vRealize Operations Manager and get some of those statistics we need for VOA. So what we're going to do is we're going to log back in again. Same credentials from before. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to set up the vCenter side. So what we need to do here is go into Administration and click on Solutions and then highlight the VMware vSphere option here. And if you notice up here, there's an option for Configure. It's right here. Click on that. And what we're going to do is we're going to type in the information now for our vCenter server. So display name, we're just going to call it VCL1. That's the name of my vCenter server. We're going to go ahead and add the vCenter server fully qualified ID, which is vcl1.smlab.local. We're going to enter its credentials. So where credential is here, you're going to click on the plus sign. And credential name could be anything, but in this case, we're going to call it administrator. And the user name is going to be administrator at smlab.local. And then we put in the password. And then we click OK. Whoop. Let's call this administrator 1. Okay, so we're in here. It's all set. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to test our connections. So hit test. It's going to give us our thumbprint. We're going to want to accept that. And it's going to see if that's a valid account within vCenter. So this usually takes about 20 or 30 seconds. So it's going ahead, it's making a call and saying, okay, is this a valid account? Test was successful. Then we go ahead and save settings. Now this message here is normal. If you've had vRealize Operations Manager installed before, you might actually get this message. All it's saying is that you already had a vCenter registered to vRealize Operations Manager in the past. In this case, just click yes and ignore the message. And it saves successfully. So it's been about an hour since we configured the VOA appliance. Basically what we're going to want to do now is take a look and see how it's doing. If you take a look at the solution settings here and look under VMware vSphere, you notice that we are receiving data now, which is good. That means that we're actually populating some useful information, the metrics and everything else that the VOA reports are going to require. This usually takes at least a day to get anything useful out of it. So you're going to get some basic metrics, but the problem with that is if you take a look at some of the actual reports, you're going to notice that these reports are, based on metrics that are, 7 days here. Some of them are even 30 days. A month, whatever the case may be. So you're not going to get any of the statistics. If I clicked on this right now, it's going to be pretty much empty. You're going to get some stats, but it's really not useful until those reports generate. So we can take a look at some of the stuff that's in here. You're noticing that we are getting some statistics, which is really nice. There's a lot of really useful information in here that you're going to want to show your customer. Some of it here, memory reports. There's all different kinds of capacity reports in here that you can show your customer. Capacity utilization reports. There's a capacity overview that's really good. All of these things are going to be excellent to show your customer once you get some information in there. And these are some of the things here that you can actually show them during this whole process. So you've got 60 days to really give them a sneak peek of what vRealize Operations Manager can do. So getting back to VOA, where's the information for VOA? How do we generate these reports for VOA to show the customer what their environment is doing? That's actually listed in the reports option under dashboards. It's right here. If you notice that you've got some of these here, 4 reports, there you've got the 3 different phases of the VOA, and then there's other canned reports that are part of the solution as well. So how do you generate a report? How do you run a report? It's very, very simple and straightforward. Basically what you're going to end up doing is you're going to highlight the report, you're going to click on Run Template, you're going to choose basically a level on which you want to run it in the infrastructure. In this case, we're running it in the entire infrastructure, but you can actually limit the scope on what you want to run the report against, and then you click OK. And that's going to actually generate the report for you. This one's going to give you basic configuration information. It's going to give you whether DRS or HA is installed. It's going to tell you what the cluster sizes look like, if there's any immediate errors it might generate, how many VMs you have in the environment, all the basic stuff. Again, usually generated one day after you do the install, you're going to get some really useful info. Phase 2 is usually done a week after the installation is done. That's going to give you more in-depth information. It's going to give you some performance statistics. It's going to tell you what your environment is doing. If there's any contention areas, if you're, if there's anything that's very obvious, it's going to come out there. And last but not least, phase 3, which is done usually between 30 to 45 days after the initial install, that's going to give you the capacity report. That's going to give you everything you want to know about the system, what your system is doing, what the trending looks like, whether or not you need capacity, when do you need capacity, all that fun stuff. And then last but not least is the consolidated report, which actually, again, done usually 30 to 45 days after install, which is going to give you a combination of all 3. The consolidated report itself looks like this. Basically, again, it's a report that gives you all kinds of useful information. It's going to give you, what your environment is doing, what it looks like, how it's running, what's underutilized, where you get your capacity back, your top 5 VMs, your top 5 stressed VMs, all kinds of really in-depth information that can definitely help you with the sales cycle. Can definitely open the it's one of those gotcha moments for the client, and really going to give them some value as far as, okay, what is this thing doing for me, and how can I optimize my existing system to just give me better performance and overall just better capacity as well. So definitely worth running. Again, this report can't be ran until the system's at least running for 30 days. That's going to give you the best impact as far as what you're going to get for information. Again, all available in the system itself. You don't have to install any reports. Just remember where it is. You go to dashboards and then you go to reports, and there's your options here. You also have a whole bunch of canned reports that you can leverage as well if you want to show your customers those. These are just a few of them here that I'm showing you now. So definitely, again, leverage that, get some value out of it. Some of the other things you can show the customers, which is definitely useful, is alerts. So alerts are actually going to give you issues with the system that are happening now. These are some of the alerts that we're seeing in the system that we're using for the lab environment. It looks like we have some disk I/O issues with vCenter. UEM definitely has some things going on with it. So again, some useful information that definitely will have an impact with the client. So definitely take a look, poke around, and you get an idea of where the value is and what you can do to help your customer.